Welcome back to the channel. Last time we finished up this bearing holder here. So today we're going to start on this column that goes in the middle. So I've got this piece of aluminum here to start with. There's a lot of details and a lot of turning that's going to be done on this. So it's square on the bottom and top, and then there's a taper, and then there's some details here in between. And then this is tapered in the middle, and then it gets flutes machined into it with a ball end mill. So I'm not 100% sure about the order of operations here, but I've thought through a lot of it. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is mark these ends, find the center of them and punch them. So then we can set this up in the 4-jaw and then turn a round section on each end. This is much longer than it needs to be overall, but I need to be able to hold this to do some operations on it. So that's why I'm going to turn a round section on each end, and then we will counterbore it also, just so we've got centers in it if we need those at some point. So the round section, I can hold that when I put this in to plan on putting it in a spin indexer or some way to index it to machine these flutes in it. And we'll have to set it up at an angle, so I need a way to hold that and set it up at an angle. So that'll be just a convenient way to do that, is turn rounds on each end, which those will eventually get cut off below this square section here. So we'll get it marked, get it set up, and get that turned, and then determine what the next step is after that. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. Cover everything that I've done. So we started out with this square blank, and then I centered it up in the 4-jaw chuck, faced off this end, and then went ahead and put a center in it. So we used this for tailstock support for a live center. Then flipped it around, squared it up again, and then turned this section down to 1 inch round. This will eventually get cut off. And then also put a center in here just in case we need it at any point to center this thing back up. And I'll show you what this is for here in a few minutes. So then to turn the center section out here, took a cutoff tool and plunged in to I know what this diameter here is. So we plunged in here, plunged in over here, and then with right and left tools, worked this section out here to be cylindrical. Then there is a radius in here and a radius in here. And I had an insert tool that had a big radius on it, so I was able to come in here and plunge it and get this radius here and here. Then I set up the compound on an angle. I know what this angle is supposed to be roughly. I did adjust it a little bit to get these two diameters to meet each other. So I plunged into what this final diameter is here and here, and then worked this section out here in between it with the compound on an angle. Then we need a radius back here and a radius here. So I was able to take and grind up a tool for that, and then check the radius with radius gauge here and just get it as close as we can. So then I was able to come in here, plunge in, put this radius in here, and I know what the diameter is, and plunge it into here to what the final diameter is. So that leaves this bead section here, and then same thing with that. I made a tool with the radius on there using the radius gauge to check it. And then this is only like 92 thousandths wide, so I didn't have anything good to cut that with. This radius here, I could grind that in with the either on the belt sander or on a grinding wheel, but in order to make this small concave radius here, what I did is I took my Dremel tool and a pretty thick cutoff wheel, and then you can actually shape these. This is the tool to dress the stone on your grinder. You can freehand sort of put a radius on this, so I just freehand ground this to a radius. It started out flat, so then I was able to use that and then come in here and work this out to get that radius there. So same thing here, plunged in and got the radius there for the bead and the radius there for the bead. Clean it up a little bit with a file, some sandpaper, and some Scotch-Brite. So that gets us to this point here. So the next thing that we need to do is put these, take a ball end mill, and it gets 8 grooves machined in it. So they'll be at 45 degrees around here. So we'll go over to the mill and I'll show you how I got that set up. Okay, so over here at the smithy now. So what we've got is a sign plate here on the bottom. So this is adjustable up and down, so we can set the angle with what the gauge block stack that we put under this end here. And then I've got a 5C spin indexer here. So this takes 5C collets, and then you can index it to different positions every degree. So there's a scale here on the back, so we can do 0 it out there. And then there's different pins, like if you want to do 1 degree, move to the 1 degree pin, move it 1 click, that'll do 1 degree. Or if you want to do 7, move it over there, clicking in, that does 7 degrees all the way till you get to the next 10 degrees. Then you go back to the 0 here to 10 degrees. So this will allow us to index it every 45 degrees. And now you can see why I initially turned this round section here, was to be able to hold this in the collet block, in the collet, 1-inch collet there. So we'll put that in there, and then we can square everything up. We've got this locked down to our 0 position, and then we'll square it up on the side here. And then we'll lock that down. And then we're already squared up to the table here. So I've got this running true to the table. So in order to set this taper angle here, what I did was put a dial indicator on here from the bed, and then ran the table, ran it from one end to the other, and figured out how much difference there was. And then I could adjust my gauge blocks under here to get this running perfectly flat. So I'll put a edge finder in here, we'll find the edge and then get centered up on here, and then put a ball end mill in here, and then we'll machine this groove out, and then we'll index it over to the next position, and then machine another one. We'll do that 8 times, and that'll get the grooves in there. And then I'll probably pull this out just a little bit, and this is still oversized here, but while I've got this set up and I've got a good way to index it, I'm going to go ahead and machine this down to size, and then I may go ahead and machine this section here down. It gets machined down quite a bit, and then this will just get eventually bandsawed off, and then we'll machine it flat on the top side, and then we'll get this nub off of the bottom, and then it gets drilled and tapped from the bottom, and then it gets 2 more holes drilled and tapped in the top, and then that should finish it up. But we'll get set up and go ahead and machine these grooves in it. Okay, that was a lot of machining, but that finished up the column. So we got machined the size down here at the top and the bottom, and then took a 1/8" end mill and rounded off these corners here, and then got the bearing holder mounted here. Drilled and tapped that for some 256. So turned out good. Still need to do a little deburring on it, clean up some of these marks here with the ball end mill, but I think that's going to work. So that's going to do it for this episode. Come back next time and we'll start on one of these other columns. I haven't decided yet which one. Both of these are going to be cast iron. I don't think they'll be quite as involved in it as this. There's no taper on it. They do get the grooves machined into them, but they're round, and then they get a flat that cuts on them that butts up against this center column here. So we'll get started on that next time. Thanks for watching.